Right. We are live today. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. I hope that you're catching on to us and that we're not professional podcasters. And we're here just to provide some information for people who want to beat the odds at business and wealth in Canada. And today, Josh, what the heck are we talking about?
We're talking about Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, going full Bitcoin bull, and we're gonna dive into it and figure out what the opportunity here is, what they're actually saying, what you can do to position yourself, right? So, but there's, we're kind of contrarians. Like, if you want to build wealth in this country, you have to understand that only 20% of the people actually have wealth. So if you do 80%, if you do what the 80% does, you won't have it.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of sidetrack is like Trevor, what was the, I want you to tell people what the news was that JT came out with regarding our pew-pews that are happening, and I'm going to tell people how I would reframe it as a contrarian thinker. So
Okay, so JT and his ilk came out with a new set of guns that they want to ban, and in order to protect us from gun crime. And included on that list are some 22 long rifle guns that look scary. And what they're saying is they're going to confiscate those ones, or the ones that are turned in, and they're going to send them to Ukraine so they can defend themselves against the mean Russian army. That's where they're coming from. And for me, as a law-abiding citizen and registered gun owner, for me, it's like, you know what? Keep your hands off of my property.
So that's Trevor is a very reasonable person of how he's going to frame it, and I'm gonna tell you as the extreme contrarian, how I receive the message from JT. It goes through this contrarian filter, and it comes out. It's the main gun salesman in Canada, Justin Trudeau, has just told me that we now have some limited editions on sale, but you have to go quickly to buy them. So immediately after this podcast, where am I going? I'm going to P&D.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to say, hey, what limited editions do you have now that I won't be able to get in a few days?
Exactly.
That's the one we're going to get, right? So that's where it's rolling.
And Josh, it brings me back to the time when he made the announcements that he was banning pistols. Banning the sale and transfer of pistols. What did you and I do?
we had guns laid out in this day.
We went to P&D and we bought some guns. Why? Because they're going away. You can't get them again until a more reasonable party comes into place, right?
So now we've lost half of our viewers, and the other half are thoroughly entertained. But come for the financial education, stay for the unsolicited gun buying advice. So, but yeah. Okay, so let's dive into it, where we are in terms of Bitcoin, because most people, they just don't understand how significant this whole thing is. And I've been posting this kind of religiously for almost 3 years now, almost 3 years at this point. And most people would be shocked how big Bitcoin is, first of all. They just don't understand that this is a financial grade institutional asset, because they were lied to. It's the same people who told you that wearing a mask alone on your car is going to prevent
I saw one yesterday.
Pandemic is told you that Bitcoin was not an institutional asset, but this is the largest assets by market cap in the world, and gold is number one, $17 trillion market cap. Apple is the biggest company right now. You'll see Apple and NVIDIA switch places every once in a while, but $3.5 trillion for both of them. Okay, then you move down and you have Microsoft at 3.2 trillion, Amazon at 2.3 trillion, Google at 2.1 trillion. Then you have Bitcoin at about $2 trillion. I want to help people frame this. Bitcoin is worth $2 trillion. How big $2 trillion is the largest energy company on planet Earth, Saudi Aramco, which is owned by the Saudi royal family primarily. They're worth less than Bitcoin.
That is a big eye-opener for people. I don't think they understand the gravity of what that means. The market cap of Bitcoin is greater than Saudi Aramco, which basically controls the oil market on the planet.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then, okay, who's next? Silver. So after 5,000 years of silver penetrating the market, Bitcoin is bigger. Like all the Bitcoin in the world would be worth more than all the silver in the world. It's like people have to understand this. And please do not give me I can't live in a Bitcoin, because you also can't live in a GPU sold by NVIDIA too.
That's right.
You can't live in your share certificate. Like you need to like just realize that this was a giant psyops to tell you not to buy it. But don't worry. They're going to start, once they have their hands full, they're going to make sure it's in everyone's RRSP that they're buying down at the Royal Bank. Like that is coming. This is an inevitable conclusion for that. Meta Platforms, $1.5 trillion. So basically, Bitcoin is worth $500 billion more than Facebook. If you owned all the Bitcoin, you would have $500 billion more wealth than if you were the 100% sole owner of Facebook. Like
just $500 billion.
And you need to go down through this. It's like Berkshire Hathaway. So Warren and Charlie, who told you not to buy Bitcoin, in their 100 years on the planet, their company is worth half as much as the Bitcoin. Half. Okay. So they're telling you not to buy it, but Bitcoin lapped them. While they were telling you repeatedly not to buy it, Bitcoin lapped them. Why? It's because that system works really well for them. That fake money system works really well for them. All of the banks, Visa, MasterCard, you start looking at this, it's like Bitcoin is worth more than Visa and MasterCard put together. It's worth more than any of the banks who told you to buy bonds instead of Bitcoin.
Government bonds.
Considerably more. Okay. And I'm going to show you like this is not a conspiracy. Like who is buying it now? It's like the largest asset manager on planet Earth, BlackRock through Larry Fink, is just buying an obscene amount of Bitcoin. The number 3 asset manager, Fidelity, they are buying obscene amounts of Bitcoin. It's like eventually all of these banks, all of these investment advisors take their marching orders from the biggest guys, and that's what's going to happen. You're going to see your RBC balanced portfolio have 1 to 3%, 1 to 5% in Bitcoin in 5 years. Just like mark my words, like that is coming. Most people won't know they own Bitcoin. Like they're just going to eventually look at their statement and figure out, like, I got this allocation to cryptocurrency. What the heck is that? It's 1%. I'm not even going to look at it. And if you look, that's what's going to happen. That is the future. Okay. So I want to really drill. Once you understand, it's this is the reality. This is a major institutional asset, and it doesn't get that big by a bunch of memers on the internet buying it. It's getting that big because a bunch of institutional players have been buying it and buying it and buying it. And sovereign wealth funds buying it. This is happening, whether you want it to or not. This is happening, and people will think it's a bubble. It's no, that's not it. Go back and study bubbles. What happens is an asset goes up, and in a bubble it crashes, never to return. Bitcoin has had 4 cycles where cyclically it declines and then it returns bigger and stronger. That is a resilient asset. There's a difference, and you can look them up through history. You can look at the companies that crashed in the dot-com bubble. You can look at tulips. It's very predictable pattern, up, crash, done. That's it. They don't go up, down, up higher, up, down, up higher, 4 times. That is a resilient asset that's here to stay. That's just how it works.
And I know that there's some talk in the U.S. of creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve, but has anybody in Canada, in the besides Pierre Poilievre, who suggested that people should invest in some Bitcoin, besides him, has any government in Canada ever come out and saying that they're going to have some kind of strategic Bitcoin reserve for their population?
I think this is the first. And it's a soft recommendation. I'll get into the actual wording of the recommendation on what they're saying, and it's that's kind of what we have is most politicians. You have to understand, and we're gonna go through what Kenneth Sim said, but Pierre Poilievre came up and he knew Bitcoin was a good investment, and he said it a while ago, and then it had a bit of a price correction, and what did he do? He read his polling numbers and shut up about Bitcoin rather than grow a pair and actually tell people that this is a resilient asset and it's coming up back. It's that. That's what Canadians needed. So the jury's out on that. I'm very skeptical of all career politicians, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle that they come on. So, not that I don't think that it would be an upgrade over a drama teacher. It's, I'm still skeptical about the conviction there, because it seems to be, the policy seems to be heavily guided by polling rather than an actual strategic vision that sometimes isn't popular in the short term but would be effective in the long term, right? So,
and the other side of it is having people around you that are smarter than you.
Yes.
To give those recommendations, which I think in a lot of cases, the politicians, especially in Canada, don't have those good advisors around them. So really they are reliant upon polls or public opinion to come up with their strategies. And I think that's what's sorely lacking
dangerous
in Canada. It's hugely a wrong way to do things, because you're going by popularity. Well, popularity can change from day to day, minute to minute. Right? Look at people's opinions on social media. It just changes so quickly. I think we need smart people. Maybe if Poilievre reached out to Josh Spurrell, he could kind of give him some ideas on what to do to turn Canada around.
Maybe he should reach out to the mayor of Vancouver, Kenneth Sim. You'll see when I get through this and why this is very significant. So let's go and actually look at the council members' motion. Okay.
All right.
So I want to get into the weeds here, because a lot of people, they're going to see a lot of hyperbole and a lot of headlines, and this is the actual motion that's in front of council, right? And you'll see that a lot of the policy decisions, the strategic decisions that I've made in my life, it's I've actually read the documents, right? When I took a Bitcoin position starting in April of 2022, it's because of the massive deficits that actually ran up, where the strategic direction of monetary policy had kind of got past the point of reasonable return. There was really no other way. The governments had spent a crazy amount of money, and coming out of COVID, it was very, very clear that they had no intention of stop spending and no plan to solve it. So, that's why I needed the insurance of Bitcoin and gold. And then why did I take a much larger position on October 13th of 2020, October 13th of 2023, is because I actually read the ruling from the judge in the Grayscale case that came out on August 29th, and they had the U.S. Security and Exchange Commission had 45 days to appeal the ruling. And when October 13th came around, it's they didn't appeal it. It was a done deal. The Bitcoin ETF was coming to market. BlackRock was coming in with tens or hundreds of billions of dollars. It was inevitable, right? It was a gimme. So it's really important sometimes to get past. It can be some work. It's really easy for alliteration and kind of the attention spans of people to not do this, but come with me on this journey, because this is important. Okay,
let's dig in.
So, the City of Vancouver holds financial reserves intended to serve as a safeguard for the city's fiscal health. So they're acknowledging, they're not saying I'm buying Bitcoin there. They're acknowledging that the City of Vancouver has to hold reserves in order to function. Okay, because they can't just live paycheck to paycheck. They got to have some savings. Okay, the City of Vancouver has a fiduciary responsibility to manage its fiscal reserves prudently to safeguard the purchasing power of its funds. The purchasing power of traditional fiat currencies through centralized monetary systems has faced increasing challenges in recent years due to inflationary pressures, expansive monetary policy, i.e. excessive money printing, and economic stability leading to significant currency debasement. Okay, and who brings this forward? This is a council member's motion. This is submitted by Mayor Kenneth Sim himself. So this is his motion, okay? He is acknowledging these facts, okay? In 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto, a pseudonym, published the famous Bitcoin white paper titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system which laid out the foundational principles of Bitcoin as a decentralized digital currency impervious to the ups and downs of the centralized monetary system. Okay, so you're starting to hear these things from the Bitcoiners, this is in one of the biggest cities in Canada, it's like this is their official motion from their mayor. I'm going to get into who their mayor is too, and he's not a drama teacher. Okay. As an open and decentralized and secure digital asset, Bitcoin has been recognized by many financial experts and analysts as a potential hedge against inflation and currency debasement, and represents a viable store of value due to its capped supply and growing adoption in the global economy. And I tell people, it's like, I don't care what you think. Sally down at the RBC does not have as much knowledge as Larry Fink at BlackRock. Like, people ask me, it's like, Josh, who would you hire as your financial advisor? It's like, Uncle Larry at BlackRock. I would hire him because he knows more than everybody. Like, that's who I'm watching, right? I want to know what Larry's doing. I want to know what Abigail's doing at Fidelity. It's like, that's who I'm watching. I really don't care if Sally down at the RBC thinks I should have a 60-40 split, okay? As regulatory frameworks have evolved over the course of Bitcoin's 16-year existence and the use of Bitcoin has diversified, Bitcoin has earned a solid reputation and gained broad acceptance and garnered institutional interest. Bitcoin has been the number one best performing asset, financial asset over the past 16 years, and major institutions and investors are increasingly coming to see Bitcoin as a legitimate long-term store of value. Examples include Fidelity, BlackRock, Charles Schwab, Deutsche Bank, Agricole, Banco Santander, all of which have become Bitcoin investors / supporters, as well as various exchange-traded funds, ETFs. Like, the Bitcoin ETFs are the most successfully launched ETFs in history. It's not even close, okay? I think yesterday, the Bitcoin ETF was the number 2 traded ETF in the entire world, okay? Beyond, just below the Spider S&P 500. Like, it's massive, and people don't even understand the significance of what's taking place here, okay? A growing number of cities globally have begun to explore the integration of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies into their financial strategies, demonstrating proactive measures to preserve capital in changing economic landscape, enhance the stability and growth of their financial reserves, and even by integrating Bitcoin into everyday transactions within their local economy, such as accepting Bitcoin as a method of payment, this including payment for municipal services and fees. A review of cities and other jurisdictions that have explored and or adopted Bitcoin highlights the diverse ways it is being embraced globally, whether it be tourism initiatives addressing local economic challenges, including making it a key component in day-to-day long-term financial activities. Examples include Zug, Switzerland, Seoul, South Korea, El Salvador, Lagunas, Pennsylvania, House of Representatives, okay? And this is the part where, like, a lot of, like, North Americans, just like Westerners, live in this vacuum, and people have to understand this. For people living in underdeveloped countries in Africa, where over 600 million people live without electricity, Bitcoin mining provides significant social impact. Okay, pathway. A prime example is the village of Bondo, Malawi, where Gridless, a Kenyan company that designs, builds, and operates Bitcoin mining sites installed by Micro Hydro Mini Grid in the village. The Micro Hydro Mini Grid harnesses renewable clean power of the plentiful water resources in the mountainous regions to generate electricity and mine Bitcoins. Gridless not only earns income to sustain the mini grid, the organization also provides affordable electricity now to over 1,800 homes in Bondo. Villagers have access to electricity now to power light bulbs, fridges, TVs, and phones, and are also starting new businesses, preserving food, storing medicine, being able to study at night. So when they try to psyops you and tell you that Bitcoin is bad for the environment, is renewable energy projects across the world are only possible because the people can turn around and sell some of the electricity from that renewable energy to basically sell the Bitcoin on the open market. And it's, the Bitcoin is mined by renewable energy. Not only that, you have people around the world that now all of a sudden can afford electricity because Bitcoin works. And I'm supposed to listen to someone and tell me that Bitcoin is bad for the environment. They just don't get it. They don't understand it.
It's huge for people in, undeveloped countries being able to have access to cheap, abundant energy. It will change their lives. It'll change their country. So Bitcoin really is a huge, huge game changer for people in these countries. And I don't think that people actually understand it.
Yeah, and Westerners who are like, well, why don't you just buy real estate? Why don't you just buy the S&P 500? It's like, okay, if I'm somewhere in Africa or some war-torn country across the world, do I want real estate that's just going to be blown up or confiscated from me? Do I want shares in a stock exchange where my currency is just going to get obliterated? It's like pretty much for 4 billion people on planet Earth, my financial advice to some of them would just be just buy Bitcoin. 100%. That's not ever the recommendation I give to my clients who have options here, because the goal is to get rich for sure rather than get rich quick. But like I've told people this many times before, I have, I have people who work for us in Manila, and what do I tell them? It's like, what should I invest in? Bitcoin. Because do I want a condo in BGC in Manila where I know that if the condo price doubles, my currency is going to get obliterated and it'll just lose, it'll lose value? It's like, no. Do I want shares on the stock exchange there? It just doesn't make any economic sense when you start looking at how their currency is going to, perform, where the investment goes up 2 or 3x, but the value of your currency gets cut in 90% in 50 years in relation to the US dollar. So like it doesn't make any sense for most of the world. Like they actually don't have any effective property rights. Like I don't think people grasp that. It's like pretty much half of the world's population don't have any effective property rights because there's no good property that they can buy. They can't even go in and get a bank account, in any sort of stable currency. So okay, moving further, the Bitcoin mining has shown environmental benefits by consuming low-cost, excess energy from stranded renewable sources. This is what people don't understand. They think power plants are like these magical things where they can just turn it up and down. It's like they have to produce a certain base load, and if you don't use it, it just gets lost. There's stranded energy, okay? And waste methane. So when you say the flare is going up, it's like, if they don't have any other way to use it, they just got to burn it off, okay? Thus reducing emissions and supporting grid stability. So like we've experienced that in Alberta where we keep getting these messages on our phone. It's like the grid is at the major capacity. It's like, well, how could we afford to buy more? It's like, you could just build another power plant and mine some Bitcoin and use it to stabilize the network. And then, maybe grandma's life support won't get shut off because we don't have enough electricity in a brownout. Like, it's having electrical grids go down is literally a matter of life and death. Like
it sure
people
is, especially in Canada.
Die over it. Like they do die over that. Okay. Okay. Vancouver is recognized as an important hub for blockchain and cryptocurrency innovation in Canada, with a vibrant blockchain ecosystem that gained international recognition when the world's first Bitcoin ATM was installed in a Vancouver coffee shop in 2013. Okay. Now, they've had some losses too. So, I mean, Binance was founded there and they had to move because of the regulations, right? They've had a couple of exchanges go sideways, but that's the history of the banking system too. So they have to be kind of aware of that. Okay. Diversifying the City of Vancouver's financial reserves and payment options to include Bitcoin would not only enhance the resilience of our city's financial portfolio, it would ultimately benefit the city's taxpayers by preserving the value and purchasing power of precious tax dollars and other financial resources against the volatility of traditional currencies, while also aligning the city with the innovative financial strategies and approaches needed to combat economic challenges in the digital age, including currency debasement and inflation. It would be irresponsible of the City of Vancouver to not look at the merits of adding Bitcoin to the city's strategic assets to preserve the city's financial stability. And this is what I've been telling.
That's huge.
It is irresponsible of every person giving financial advice to have their clients on 0%. It's like, I can get 1%. I can wrap my head around 1%. I think it's not enough, but if you are on 0, that person giving you advice is irresponsible. We had a structural change. It's It's measurable. That happened during COVID. The US dollar, they printed 40% of all the currency in circulation in an 18-month span. Everything changed, materially changed, not around the edges, okay? It materially changed. I'm telling you this as someone who did not own any gold or Bitcoin leading into 2022 because I'm actually a very conservative investor. I really am a conservative investor, but I'm not just going to follow the sheep. I'm not going to follow them right over the cliff because it materially changed in 2022. And look what happened to the price of gold and Bitcoin after that. It shot up, okay? And Vancouver is one of the places, like a lot of the real estate in Canada, it's actually not kept up with real world global inflation. If you look at gold, okay, it actually hasn't. Like if you bought a house in Edmonton or Calgary, for example, it really didn't keep up with inflation. Now you might have did okay because of the value of the leverage, okay, where you're making money not just off your equity, but you're making money off the differential between the price increase on the house and the interest that you're paying, okay. But if you look in Vancouver, it did keep pace with inflation. The Vancouver real estate did keep pace with inflation. If you look at houses in Vancouver, the shocking math is that they haven't actually gone up in price. And people are going to say, well, what do you mean by that? Of course they have. Not when you look at real money. If you look at real estate in Vancouver, it's almost identical to gold. Vancouver is desirable real estate that's desirable even on a global scale. And if you price a house in Vancouver 20 years ago, 30 years ago, start comparing it to gold, you get a little variability depending on what timeline you cherry pick on that. But really it's like, here it is, people. Like here it is. It would be the same performance if you just held gold bars or unleveraged Vancouver real estate. Same answer. You're going to get the exact same rate of return. Okay. We know it's 9% the last 25 years. Okay. You could have got it. He understands that. And let's look at exactly what they're resolving. And if this doesn't pass, it just tells the lunacy. Like every single city, every single province, the federal government of Canada should be doing this exactly right now, because this isn't even an extreme measure. You'll see that this is a very incremental baby step. Like
just putting the toe in the water of Bitcoin.
It's therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to explore options to make Vancouver a Bitcoin-friendly city by undertaking a comprehensive analysis of the potential to integrate Bitcoin into the City of Vancouver's financial strategies, such as but not limited to accepting taxes and fees in Bitcoin, as well as the potential conversion of a portion of the city's financial reserves into Bitcoin to preserve purchasing power and guard against the volatility, debasement, and inflationary pressures of traditional currencies. Okay. Further, that staff be directed to report back to council on the feasibility, risk, and potential benefits of such Bitcoin-friendly strategy by the end of Q1 2025 with specific direction, but not limited to consulting with financial advisors, cryptocurrency experts, and relevant stakeholders, ensure a thorough understanding of the implications of asset conversion, and establishing a safe and secure method for managing the assets acquired through Bitcoin, including any legislative changes that may be required, develop a comprehensive framework for the management, storage, and potential liquidation of Bitcoin assets to ensure full transparency and accountability to the citizens of Vancouver by implementing appropriate policies and guidelines to govern the procurement and holding of Bitcoin reserves, engage with the wider community, including local stakeholders, residents, and experts in the cryptocurrency space, to gather feedback and foster an informed dialogue regarding the strategic proposal, promote transparency in this initiative by keeping the public informed about developments and engaging citizens in discussions about the potential impacts of the strategic shift. So this is a very prudent, moving, slow, but anyone not doing this is completely irresponsible. Like they're not even looking into the options of using the best performing asset of the last 16 years. That's bigger than all of the institutions that have been giving them advice to this point. Like they when you talk about these advisors, like, why did you miss it? Like, why did you miss it? Like, this is why I've been so upset. It's like they're telling you to invest in bonds, and like their fiduciary duty was to I actually think that most financial advisors in this country have not followed their fiduciary duty because they sold people bonds and they didn't tell them that the institutions that they work at were required to hold bonds to meet their regulatory, to satisfy their regulators. And if the price of those bonds was to change materially, that those institutions faced insolvency. So if I'm telling someone to buy something, if I don't tell them I have a vested interest and something bad happens to me if you don't buy it, I think that's a problem. Like, I think
That's a huge problem.
You have failed on your fiduciary duty. Okay. And so this is, kudos to this guy. He's the only mayor in all of Canada who's actually exercising his fiduciary duty. And I want people to understand who this mayor is, because it's radically different than you're used to seeing in Canadian politics.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, I think this is a good idea also, because look at all of the municipalities. They're always screaming and crying that they don't get enough money from the feds. And, they're reliant on them, and they raise taxes every year. And what happens? Of course, they have a spending problem. But what would be the difference if they had some part of their holdings, some part of it in Bitcoin, to guard against the inflationary effects of our fiat currency? Yep. Like, that would make a big difference in the city of Edmonton, all the major cities, and even some of the small towns. I wonder if any of the small town councils and city councils will begin adopting Bitcoin. And it just reached 100 grand USD, yet still people are just jumping on board with Bitcoin.
Or they're just repeating headlines that they've heard and they haven't drilled into it. And the people giving the financial advice, it's like they're not, like, just imagine you're taking financial advice from RBC and they're telling you not to do it. But who is the largest shareholder in RBC? BlackRock. And what are they doing? Buying Bitcoin. So it's just going to flow into those, it's going to flow into those regimes. It's just going to take them a while. And the people there are just asleep at the wheel. And I don't know if they're really asleep at the wheel, probably on the front lines, because they've went through training programs by people who understand that if they radically shifted the investment priorities and crashed the bond prices, that this is going to change. It's like, they're going to face insolvency. It's like, why is the MicroStrategy attack working? Is because a lot of people who have to buy bonds understands, why would someone lend MicroStrategy money at 0% interest? Why? Is because they know these are people who are required to hold bonds because they have some sort of regulatory issue or statute, and they know the bonds they're supposed to buy are a scam. So what they're going to do to get around it is they're going to lend MicroStrategy money at 0% rather than lend it to one of these other institutions at 4%. They're going to lend it to MicroStrategy at 0% with the opportunity to buy into MicroStrategy shares at a 50% premium, because they know that that is more likely to get them a real rate of return. They would rather buy the Bitcoin, but they can't buy it, right? So they're going to buy the next best thing, would be the bonds in MicroStrategy, the convertible bonds that they convert to equity, and they know that they're going to obliterate the 4%. And that's why they're doing it, because I'm not, the only guy who's figured it out. The Bitcoiners haven't figured it out. The real money guys, a lot of them have figured this out, but they're stuck. They're stuck in the regulatory environment, and so you can see it. That's why basically MicroStrategy, it's a comical. It's like, would I buy bonds of MicroStrategy? No, I don't own anything. I don't own any bonds of MicroStrategy. I don't own any equity in MicroStrategy. I'd have to buy it at a 3-time net asset valuation to the Bitcoin that they hold, and maybe he becomes a Bitcoin bank, but the risk-adjusted return just isn't there for me. So, I'm a big fan of what he's doing, yeah. But if I was stuck in the UK and I couldn't buy a Bitcoin ETF in my retirement account, I'd buy shares in MicroStrategy. I would get around it that way, and I don't think I'll get the same rate of return as I would have just buying the Bitcoin ETF, but at least I'm not stuck in some dead stock that's going to get me 7% or something.
Yeah. Or worse, a government bond.
Crazy, right? And so, okay, who is this guy? This is very, very important, because this is a critical issue that we have in this country all the time. So who is Kenneth Sim? Okay, and you're going to find Kenneth Sim. Okay, Born in Vancouver to Hong Kong immigrants Francis Sim and Maria Teresa Kim, Sim attended Maggie Secondary School at Sir Winston Churchill Secondary School at the UBC School of Business, graduating with a BCom in finance in 1993. He also holds a FCPA and an FCA, so he is a chartered professional accountant, just like me. So, whoa, shocking. Another chartered professional accountant figured out that the money we were trained to count is fake. He knows it. I know it. Like it is fake. It's like, because that's like a realization. It's like we went to school for years to do this, and then when you wake up one day, it's like, wait a minute. It's like, this stuff is fake. They didn't teach us. They lied to us. Like, this stuff is fake. Like, these are the 20 billion Zimbabwe dollars, and our Canadian dollars and our US dollars are not that much better, right? It's like, this was the real money for 5,000 years, and they taught us nothing about it, right? And so, like you have to understand who this person is, okay? And I'm going to go even further into it because this is a big one. It's like, Sim co-founded Nurse Next Door Home Healthcare Services. So who is Nurse Next Door Home Healthcare Services? It's like, these are the locations of Nurse Next Door Home Health Services. U.S. locations, Canada locations, because this is different. Because I'm almost certain that 99% of the people watching this podcast right now have received someone come around to their door at some point and knock on their door, and whether they're a city councilor or an MLA, and they're going to come to them and say, I'm running as city councilor in your area, and I know because I'm an entrepreneur. This is the story that I'm an entrepreneur. And you know what happens to lots of these politicians when you dig behind them? It's like, as soon as they get on the government dole, they shut down that business because the business was a shitty business and it was basically bankrupt. And that's why they went into politics, because the business couldn't afford to pay them. That's why, the business is gone, because, they couldn't figure out how to run their corner store, but now they're going to get in charge of a city or a province or a country, and that's what's happening. This is a different ilk, people. Mm-hmm. This is a different ilk. This is someone who's actually run a successful business, who is a chartered professional accountant, who has worked in investment banking. This is a different person, and so you need to wake up out there that this is way different than Sally down at the RBC telling you to do a 60-40 split. Like, Sally was the same one who put the freaking plexiglass in the middle and tell you that's going to save the world 2 years ago. So, like, that this is just like...
All right, we're pissing everybody off today. Absolutely everyone. It's good.
So, I mean, like, this is a watershed moment, right? And, like, not all politicians are created equal. And you listen, like, I listened to what he said. He's a nice guy. He's a like, I listened to his interview. He's a political guy. Most of the world is not ready for what I would have to say, because I would just look, they asked them about it in the interview. It's like, well, are you telling us that maybe we shouldn't take the approach of Justin Trudeau's approach to the budget will balance itself? And he's like, well, I don't want to get into political like that because I have a fiduciary duty to work with all layers of government. But I would say, yeah, Justin Trudeau's an idiot. Like, have fun staying poor. Like we need to get out of this out of this bullshit. So, like, he's the right guy for the job, right? But, like, deep down, I know what he thinks. Like, it is written all over his face. He has figured it out, just like I figured it out, that this stuff is fake, and is, like, we are going to witness this transition. It's just some people are going to get on the life raft, and some people are going to realize after it's too late, right? Yeah. So,
and if Josh Spurrell was running for office, it would be more like a Ron Swanson / Elon Musk, Doge, Vivek Ramaswamy kind of deal. Slash it. Let's get rid of it all. Afuera.
The world's not ready for my radical ideas like balancing budgets and creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve on day one. Like, they're just not, they're not ready for that, right?
And what's going to be exciting next week is we're going to be talking about job numbers.
Oh, man.
That's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to drill into the job numbers. They're bleak, they're bad, right? But it's a major opportunity. People don't know what's happening there. So I really hope this is a wake-up call to someone. Like, this is not just the mayor of Vancouver, because we have a lot of deadbeat politicians. This guy's willing to get fired over this because he can go back, like, he can make money elsewhere. It's like most of those guys is like, they'll put on the mask for the pictures because they don't have another way to make $200K a year. They don't know how to do it, right? This guy has realized he got into it because his kids felt there was no future in Vancouver, and he's like, I'm going to take a hack at it, right? And I believe him. Like, I watched the podcast, and I believe the guy. Like, I think he could go back and do something else. He's not scared to get fired over this. He actually truly believes it's right. And he has brought it forward in the most accommodating fashion possible, right? Like, they're looking into it and buying. It's like, you got to get off zero. You got to get off zero if you're an individual. You got to get off zero if you're a pension fund. You got to get off zero if you're a charity. You got to get off zero if you're a city. You got to get off zero if you're a province. You got to get off zero. It doesn't matter who you are. It's like 0% allocation of Bitcoin is stupid in 2024. Like, it just is.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, folks, if you're out there and you're very skeptical about Bitcoin, just go to YouTube and start watching some videos. Watch some stuff on Michael Saylor. Watch some of the videos that we've put out. Educate yourself on it. Like, this isn't a financial services, podcast where you take our advice and you go and do investing. You have to do your due diligence and look at it on your own. But as you dig deeper into it and you realize the reality, the stark reality that Bitcoin is the new gold, you're going to realize for yourself that having, like Josh has, a 0% allocation is foolish, and you should at least jump on board and dip your toe in, get that ETF started, $100 a month, and see where it takes you.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what we have today. I hope it's helpful for someone out there, and we look forward to seeing you back next week, and we'll talk some job numbers.
Okay, so I think it's time to go get some pew-pews.
Right on.
All right.